Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the analysis of YOLENO TV. I hope you well from wherever you're watching this channel. You see, there is general concern, ladies and gentlemen, that the parliament is going to reject Raila Odinga's prime minister plan. You know, the general concern here is that maybe what RUTO has promised Raila is a prime minister position. This is what Kenyans are talking about. But you see, that for that to be done, it means the constitution must go through some processes. It must go through the parliament. It must go through some kind of referendum. So the big question here is, do you think this prime minister plan, if at all that is the case, is going to succeed? Of course, one of the clauses that is contained in the NADCO plan, the NADCO report, is a clause that guarantees the introduction of a prime cabinet position in the constitution. That through the NADCO report, the prime cabinet position is going to be made a constitutional item. That is, if, for example, in the future, Kalonzo wants to vie for presidency, they can always allocate themselves position. Kalonzo the president, deputy president, probably another person, the prime cabinet position, maybe Rigathi Gachagua, you know, that kind of formation. So what this NADCO report is supposed to do is to simply make that prime cabinet position an official position that is enshrined in the constitution. So the parliament is like to reject this deal from Raila and RUTO. So in this analysis, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to escalate this general feeling from the parliament, because based on statements that are surfacing, we are told by the Standard portal that RUTO in a dilemma after parliament rejects Raila's path to top seat. This is a setback. Now, because that is a concern, ladies and gentlemen, if the parliament rejects the deal, let's assume it rejects the deal, then most likely, because if you are very careful or keen listening to the statements from the two secretaries, there was an affirmation that that is not a coalition. It is just some kind of MOU, that there are things that the government is supposed to do, and if the government manages to do those things, then in future things are going to be better. Probably they might enter into a coalition. But if the government fails to abide by the contents of the MOU, then most likely it is not going to be business as usual. Now, what is happening here, ladies and gentlemen, is very simple. Raila has not declared that he wants to become the prime minister, but people have already said that that is his intention, because in 2007 they say that that was his intention. But the case of 2007 and now is a bit different. In 2007, we all saw what happened, and then the dialogue that brought about the creation of a very powerful prime minister position, whereby Raila could bring on board names of ministers, and Kibaki could bring on board names of ministers. So they shared. It's only that Kibaki is the one who announced those names, but Raila decided to, make his own selection of the people he thinks should be in the cabinet. We had a bloated cabinet back then, you remember, almost 40. The cabinet was bloated because it's as if what came after the agreement between the Raila and Kibaki is that Raila had to bring in names equal to the number of names that were already been pronounced as ministers. So we had a huge cabinet in terms of numbers. But these days, it's between 22 to 26 there. I think that is where it falls. Now, if the parliament does not endorse the requirements on the MOU, maybe on grounds that there are no numbers, if that happens, then most likely that coalition will not be formed, because the promise here is that it can lead to a possible coalition. So there is no coalition yet, based on the statement from the secretaries. There is no coalition, but it can lead to coalition. That is, if RUTO now decides to deliver, he obeys the freedom of speech based on the requirements there, that there is compensation of those people who are, killed by police, people who are, generally maimed by police, and we saw what happened in Kibra in 2023 when still Rigathi Gachagua was the deputy president. So there is a growing general feeling that if Ruto delivers to the MOU, because MOUs have a history of not being honored. Like for example, when Kibaki took power, there was an MOU. Of course, even before that, when Raila and Moi had a political arrangement, there was an MOU which Moi did not honor. When Kibaki was in hospital, because of the accident and the like, you know what happened. There was an MOU, things that were going to happen once Kibaki took over power. That was not honored. In 2017, we never got to understand whether there was an MOU between Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta, but we know there was the handshake. But if the MOU was Raila to be supported by Uhuru, we saw what happened. You can actually make a conclusion whether you think Raila got the support or Raila did not get the support. But what happened is something that is out there in the public domain and everybody knows. So on Ruto and Raila, of course, this MOU has been made public, the signing. So we can as well say that ODM is sharing the government. So the failures of this government, ODM is going to inherit part of them. But of course, we know the history. The first 2 years, UDA walikuwa ni kujigamba until it led to the demonstration that we witnessed. So in this MOU that was signed on the 7th March 2025, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Ruto is going to honor it? I've seen people react that Ruto can say A and say B. Like for example, in this video.
Why some of us were said to be against the handshake, The handshake took away the oversight role of the opposition. In Kenya today, we do not have an opposition. There is a mongrel of an organization. Nobody knows what the hell it is. People don't know whether we have the opposition in government or the government in the opposition. It's quite a maybe scientists, maybe policymakers in this great institution in Carnegie could do research on what is going on in Kenya. Because for all intents and purposes, the opposition is running government and government is running the opposition, which is quite a situation.
Very well. That was an interview somewhere in the diaspora, and Ruto talked about handshake, why it was the worst thing for the country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our concern is whether the parliament is going to support the deal or the parliament is not going to support the deal. If the parliament rejects the deal, what next for Raila? Just go below in the comment section and you can offer a reaction on that sentiment. So perhaps if you're watching this video and you've not subscribed, take 1 second and subscribe, like this video. Until you catch up again, stay safe and stay blessed.